Alright everyone, welcome to the second part of the sentence diagram, and we covered the first part today in class, but we're going to talk about how to diagram a few other things today. So you already know about our subject and our predicate. That's the first thing we need to diagram every single time that we take a look at a sentence. Our subject always goes on our left-hand side. Our predicate is always going to go on our right-hand side. But we're going to add a few other things, adverbs and adjectives, to kind of organize our closet just a little bit better. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about something called modifiers. A modifier is something that takes a subject or a verb and changes it or describes it. So we already know some of these. Adjectives, which are going to be in green in this presentation, modify nouns, like a large room or a red shirt. And adverbs modify verbs and other adverbs. So how did he run? He ran quickly. How did he speak? He spoke softly. A lot of times adverbs end in ly. So modify equals change. Don't be frightened when you guys see that on a test. When we're talking about a modifier, just means change. So subject modifiers like adjectives go on little slanted lines. So you guys know from yesterday that we start off, so let's take our sentence, big dogs bark. We start off by drawing out our sentence diagram. We've got our two lines right here. Our subject goes on the left, which is dogs. Our predicate or verb goes on the right. That's bark. And big, because it describes the type of dogs, goes underneath. Big dogs bark. Very easy. Again, when we do a sentence diagram, we don't need to worry about punctuation, periods, commas, anything like that. Modifiers like adverbs go under the words they modify in slanted lines, so they would go under the verbs. So again, easy way to put it, okay? Dogs bark loudly. Just go step by step. We've got our dogs, which is our subject. We have bark, which is going to be our verb. How do they bark? They bark loudly. So ask yourself that question. How is the verb being modified? Okay, dogs bark. How do they bark? Do they bark loudly, softly? Also, if you were to use a prepositional phrase, which we'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow, you would say something like dogs bark outside of the door. Outside of the door would go underneath bark in this little space right here. But how that looks, we'll talk a little bit more about later. But just keep that in mind. Now, there's something called indefinite and definite articles. Basically, it's the word the, a, or and. A definite article tells us that something is definitely what we're looking for. So, for example, the desk. Indefinite articles states that we're not so sure. A car or an elephant. Basically, if you want to know a little secret, definite and indefinite articles are just really specific, fancy adjectives. So, they would go into the words. Like we've got the dogs bark. Very easy to do. Start with our sentence diagram right here. We've got dogs on the left, because that's our subject, in blue. Bark on our right. And the goes underneath. Okay, super easy. Just a specific type of adjective. The big dogs bark. So if I've got more than one, here's how I do that. Again, start with dogs and start with bark, very easy. Now I just have two words underneath, okay? The dogs bark, the big dogs bark. Both the and big describe our subject. They're all part of our complete subject, which is over here. So I need to put them on the left side. So again, just 4 simple steps. You should start every single sentence diagram this way. Find the subject, put it on the left side. Find the predicate, put it on the right side. Then after that, you're finding what describes those things and putting them where they go. Okay, number 5, find out what words modify the subject and predicate. Put them under the correct spaces. Johnny ran quickly. Johnny's our subject, right? So I put Johnny on the left. Ran is my verb. Put it on the right. And then I put quickly underneath the ran because it describes how Johnny ran. Johnny ran quickly. Goes underneath the predicate. Take this sentence right here okay, the sentence diagram, and I want you guys to actually write out what the sentence should say just in grammatically correct language. Okay, so take this whole sentence diagram and write it out in a sentence. Make sure that you put punctuation in there too, because you are writing the sentence down. Did you get it? It's the dedicated student performed wonderfully.